So yeah, again, that's what we're supposed to be doing today. I'm not going to give you another exercise on forms because we have done the forms. We have done the forms. So just reminding you of it when you saw the guy with the mustache and the 2 cups of coffee. That was the thing with the forms. Now, in the old version of this course, we used to make the students write PHP and SQL. So just to let you know what that was about. The form, if we look at the form, just going back to here's the start of the form. Do you remember that we had to put this action in there, and then there's a method post. There's 2 different types of methods that you can use, which is post and get. And I am going to mark the people that just arrived. So that's Ali Dara. All right, there you go. So yes, you are marked present. Anybody else I miss? I think I got you.
Did you mark my name, sir?
Who's that? Who's that? Who just said that? Sorry, I can't see you. Who said that? Um, who I haven't marked is Salah, Omar, Nasreen, Muhammad Abid. Oh yeah, I think I saw Muhammad Abid's here. Yeah, I remember. Uh, Muhammad Osama, I haven't marked him. Jazm, Jamil, Jabr, and Ahmed Al Say. So if you're any one of those people, let me know, and I will mark you. Omar, gotcha. All right, so that's who I've marked. So just anybody okay with that? I got you all marked, I think. So back to this exercise. When we looked at this, what's the idea of a form? And we are sort of recording this, I think. So you can look at this later. But the idea of a form is you're gathering data from our user. Now, we wouldn't just gather data to throw it away. We gather data and we do something with it. Well, what do we do with it? Sitting behind this must be on a server. We would have an SQL database. Probably. I mean, I suppose we could serve it in other things, but basically on the internet, this is what's driving the internet is we got stuff saved in an SQL database. So somewhere there's going to be a database and it could have many different tables, but it could just have one table, I suppose, be a very simple one. Well, no, this is going to have multiple tables. It's going to have some stuff with the customer, and it's going to have something about an order. So we would have an order table, and we probably have a table that has something to do with the different types of coffee. And so we'd have those different tables. And when we submit this button, when we finish, now let's say put some data in here. So I've populated those fields. Yeah, so well, I have to click on yes. I mean, our customer would be hoping that this wouldn't go away. And so in case what happened when I hit the submit there is it went to the server. And if we look at the URL that's up there at the moment, we can see that this is we're actually looking at a file, which is a PHP file, which is sitting on the SIT server in a directory called CP1520, because that's a course that we used to have, right? And we can see that it's telling us that there's a bunch of data that has been sent to this server, then this server processed that data. Now, what would normally happen is the server would take that data and then insert it into an SQL table or multiple tables. And so we have a PHP programming language. So this is a PHP file, which I can't actually open from here because it's on the server, and so it's behind the server firewall. I would have to log into the server and have the access authority to actually edit that file. But I can see the results of that file because it's shown here. And that was accessed by me pressing the order now button. So the way the form works is it gathers the data, and then that data is all assigned. Actually, the way the PHP works is it's going to be assigned to a and you wouldn't be able to see this here, but what will happen is each of those fields, which are given labels um, and names by their name, they would be assigned a variable which would carry that data into the onto the server, and then the server would process that data and insert it into an SQL table. And so there's a lot going on with the form. It's not just this sort of pretty thing that we have out there. It's actually something that's very important and kind of driving our access on the internet. Now, having said that, this course, CP1436, we don't actually require you to sort of be able to do these things, PHP, JavaScript, or SQL programming. And actually to manage this form, to see the backside of the form and what's going on in the backside, we'd have to write a PHP file, and we would have to sort of have access to the server. That's another thing, and then we would have to be able to work with an SQL database as well. So that's a lot of work that is beyond the scope of this course. But you will certainly be doing that if you continue on with your web development. So I guess if I was to summarize that, there's not really much that we've done in this course that would sort of represent the real dynamic, powerful way that the web is used in our web development. Um, until this point, all we've sort of done is stuff that could have been the old static websites of the old days. And if you want a static website, all you need is CSS and HTML. But what I mean by static is that the data's there, and we put it up, and people look at it, and that's very nice. They just look at it. That's how the internet was sort of 20 years ago. Now we're into what we call Web 2, and Web 2 we interact with our users. And so to interact with our users, we have to have something changing when the user goes onto the website. And there's two ways that can happen. That can happen with PHP. So the PHP is working on the server, or it could be some kind of embedded programming in the HTML. So you could be running some Python program somehow in there, or you could be using JavaScript. So JavaScript. Again, it's kind of like a programming language that you might be familiar with. It kind of looks a bit like Java. Maybe that's why they call it JavaScript. But basically, what it does is it allows the user to sort of click on buttons and stuff like that and change what's happening on the website. Now, we're clicking on a button here and changing something, but what we're actually doing is it's not JavaScript, that's PHP. What that's doing is that's going and accessing a PHP file, and then the PHP file is processing the data that's come to it. Now, that was kind of a long discussion, but I just wanted you to be aware of the sort of forms thing. Because in this course, you have to know about forms, but you don't have to do the back end. So I just give you a little bit of a idea of what is the back end. You have done a form. So I would not be surprised if that shows up in the final exam. So that's that. Okay, so that's that. What about today? That's the PHP. Let me get today's CMS. Sorry, can't find your file. Oh, yeah, great. Okay, so let me close this. I'm gonna have to pull it out of wherever I've got it. So that would be. Sorry about this. Um, Not assignments. It would be in the labs. Yeah, there it is. Today, lab 10. So today's lab that I want you to have a look at, and I'm not going to really go through and demonstrate this one for you because I think that this one is a good one for you to do by yourselves. Now, the idea being here is, what if I just wanted to make a really quick web page, and I didn't want to have to do a whole lot of HTML and CSS coding. Now, one student's come in and visited me a couple of times, and we've had some interesting sort of playing around with the HTML, and thanks for that. I noticed on his computer that he had a bunch of Adobe programs, and one of them was Dreamweaver. So you may come across something like that. A program like Dreamweaver will allow you to make websites a lot quicker than just doing it with Notepad++ or or Visual Studio Code. So with something like Dreamweaver, you've got a development environment in which you can sort of do a little bit more click and dragging. It's not part of this course. I'm not going to teach you Dreamweaver. It used to be courses in web development using Dreamweaver, and I would say it's easier than writing code straight up from HTML. Another step beyond that would be something like WordPress. And that's what the exercise that I'm going to ask you to do today is to go ahead and try WordPress. Now, in this document that's given to you here, it offers two different ways of doing a content management system. One way would be that so somebody in your organization has a website, a web server that's hosted by somebody, and you access that server, and there's a front end for that server, which is a content management system, and you interact with that and you can create content. Okay, that's kind of like what we do here at the college. Here we got the SIT server, and we interact with that, and you guys are putting content onto the SIT server, and you would notice that that's basically publishing your website. Once it gets up onto the SIT server, if that's happened successfully, you have published. What I mean by that is you can share your URL with the rest of the world. Anybody can go and look at how your website has been developed. Now they can look at it, but they don't have the permissions to change any of it. So they can just look at it. And so you have published, and that's kind of the way you hope it would be, right? That you don't want people going in there and editing your website. If they did that, you'd call them a hacker, right? And so you do put your website behind some kind of security, and you'll notice that because when you um, used the SIT server, you had to use FileZilla to access it. And in FileZilla, you had to input credentials, which were your login credentials for the SIT server, which were given to you by Robert, who's I guess you'd say, our SIT server administrator. That's actually runs off his computer. So that's how that's working. We could have somebody, but don't you see that's a lot of work? I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, if we didn't have Robert here doing that for us, it's just not going to really happen. We couldn't really ask the people downstairs to do that. They're kind of busy doing other stuff. So that's one way of doing it is you get somebody who's a little bit who needs to be expert enough in networking, in hardware, in web development, in operating systems, a lot of stuff to sort of be the administrator for your server. And then because they're running a lot of Linux on that and the commands to sort of keep that up to date. So that's a lot of work. Or the other thing is you could say, well, you know what? For whatever reason, in our organization, we don't have or need that type of expertise. And so we know that some people do have it. So, there's a lot of really, really smart people at Google. There's a lot of really, really smart people at WordPress, and they have these big server farms running in Iceland or where Ireland or wherever, and they that's what they do all day long is sort of provide an environment for people to do their web development and web hosting. So they're doing that. And so they have a lot of really smart people doing that. So we could go to them and probably for a lot cheaper get ourselves a website going. Um, and they probably would have some tools to help us to do that quickly. And so, yes, so we have these things like WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, Joomla, whatever. Uh, the recommendation for this assignment, you can use any of those if you want, but I recommend you use WordPress. The idea being is so yeah, I'm telling you now, yeah, go to wordpress.com, create for yourself an account, uh, choose now, when you go to wordpress.com, it's going to offer you a paid for account. The benefit of the paid for account is that you're going to have a shorter um, URL name. Uh, But if you take the free account, it's going to be a sort of a weird name, with your name and a bunch of numbers or something like that. But that's okay. I mean, it's just for us to do this. So you can get a free account with them and you can host a website. Now, why it's called WordPress.com is, blogger types. That's what they do, right? When they get started. I mean, usually after a while they get something a little bit more sort of professional. But to start off in your blogging world, I mean, you could just do it on Facebook, I suppose. But to start off in your blogging world, you'd go to WordPress and you could create a website. I mean, you can do this in like 10 minutes. Create a website and then start sharing the URL with your friends through email or whatever, or other people, and you could start having this sort of online presence and conversation. So that's what I want you to do, is to create for yourself a website. All right. And then you can share with me the URL, and that's this assignment. As I said, I'm not going to demonstrate that for you. I think it's pretty straightforward, and you can sort of, by all means, help each other. But it's I want you to try and do that on your